So now we can go ahead and start doing our boring. Our counter bore is going to be 3 inches deep. I'm going to use that CCMT tool. That's a solid carbide shank. Hopefully it'll work out and to give me some good results, give me some good chip control. So to set the 3-inch depth, I'm going to use this cool little 4-inch travel indicator right there. I got that from Tom Lipton a while back in a trade. So I'm going to go ahead and touch the end. And we'll get this indicator set. All right, we're going to travel in 3 inches. 1, 2, Alright, there's 3 inches. So I'm not going to use this one for the zero stop. I'm going to use this one right here. I had some people ask me about that. I shown this one in one of my SNS episodes a few weeks back. This was made by Scott Lundy out in California, and we call it the Hackmaster indicator. And the way he's got it machined is that you've got this fence on there and it's got magnets so that it stays nice and parallel with the ways. Alright, so we got our zero stop there. Alright, let's go for it. That's 100 thousandths. That's a 5,000 speed right there, so just moved it up to 7 thousandths. And again, I'm in no hurry. I'm taking my time. It's Saturday night. Weather's nice, so I'm just going to sit out here and I'm going to watch this thing cut. So these next few clips here, for some odd reason, I completely lost audio. I really don't know why. I haven't figured out why I lost it, but there was several clips here that I did not capture any audio at all. And there's one clip here that's coming up real soon that you can hear a lot of static and a lot of scratchy sounds in it. I put that in there so that you could hear, see what it was doing. And then after that clip, my audio came back. So I decided to use the flood coolant here for the boring to help lubricate the cut, keep the shaft cool on that end right there, and it worked out really good. And here I'm using my telescope gauge to get a measurement on the ID and just kind of sneak in on that diameter that we're looking for. Alright, this last cut that I just made, it took quite a bit more than what I was expecting it to. So we're down to really about 12, 13 thousandths to come out of it. Part of that was the tool pressure from taking the heavy cut down to a light cut and it catching up to it. So I want to see what it's going to do without even feeding in. It looks like it's taking some, so I'm gonna dial in 5 and see what kind of reading we're getting. Alright, good. 6 thousandths. 6 thousandths is what we need. Now that's not a supercritical dimension there either. That's just what we're boring it for our clearance for our thread. So I'm going to go ahead and dial in 6, and that'll be the finished cut. Keep it cool and lubed. When I get back to my 0, I'm going to back face it there with that boring bar, and that way we don't drag on the finish on the way out. Alright, there's the back. It's 909.5, so I'm right there on it. That'll work out good. So we're going to put a counter bore here on the front. The very first 1/4 inch in, we're going to go ahead and counter bore it to the diameter of the major diameter of the thread. That kind of gives it a nice little start. You know, start in there and then start in with the threads. Just touching the face, and we'll set a depth here with this 1/4 inch deep. And reset a 0. So another reason why this is a nice little trick, not just on this job, but a lot of jobs. Whenever you're doing your threading, as you're running your tool in there for each pass, if you bore this to the diameter that you know your threads is, once that tool scratches that surface right there, you know you should be there, somewhere there and about anyway. All right, so we got about another 70,000. Right there. At 79. Before we do our threading, what I'm going to do is machine a thread relief in the back against the shoulder back there. Now technically I don't really have to machine a thread relief. I'm doing that so that I don't risk breaking this new tool. I don't think it would happen, but there is a possibility that would mess that up, and that's because we're dealing with such a coarse thread. You know, the tool is going to move in there at a pretty fast rate. Disengaging the thread or moving the cross slide out of the cut at the same exact time can be a little tricky with a coarse thread. So in the event that you don't, it could dig in. If it doesn't break the tool, it could move your setup, could move the part or something like that. So in cases like this, it's better to put you a thread relief in there so you don't have to worry about messing your setup and messing up the part or anything like that. So I'll have a 1/2 inch wide thread relief in the back up against the shoulder there, and that's really the unused portion of the counter bore in here. So this is the tool I'm going to use. It's a radius tool, and I pick a radius tool so that it does put a nice radius in the corner there. It'll help strengthen this end of the shaft instead of having a sharp corner. This is a tool bit that I found in the drawer, and I had to touch it up on the side here. It wasn't really ground straight and parallel, and the way that it was ground, it would have rubbed here and not have a nice straight cut on the side. So again, you want to make sure that your grind, that you have relief. If you look at the edge of the scale there, you want to have a little bit of relief there so it doesn't rub the entire side of the tool right here. And then I just touched it up, touched the top up because it had a burnt edge, and then honed it. So all you got to do really is just measure. This one was around 200, I think. So around 213 thousandths. So you just kind of jot that measurement down so that you know how wide your tool is. And then once you make your first cut, you can step the carriage over the remaining amount that you want to bring it to 1/2 inch wide, and then just make your cuts back and forth to remove it. So let's go ahead and let's get going. Oh, one other thing I was going to mention too. I've got this bar where I want it, and since we're 3 inches deep, I've got the bar, the tool bit basically, you know, sticking out about 3 1/4 inches. Always keep your boring bars shortest amount of stick out that you can get away with. All right, so we're ready to go in there and do our thread relief. I had a lot of guys always asking me about the numbers I got wrote down right here. So this is my notepad. What I got is that's the depth that I want to take the tool. Once I touch the inner diameter there, we're going to go 182 thousandths deep. And offset is the number that'll bring us to a 1/2 inch wide thread relief in there. Since our tool is 213 thousandths wide, we need to offset it 287 thousandths. So I've got everything kind of preset here, and I'll show you what I'm doing. It's going to be really hard to see what's going on in there because the boring bar holder kind of blocks the view of everything. So I'll come on in, and over here on this mag back indicator, what I've got it, there's our first zero, but it's preloaded. I'm going to go 300 thousandths. 1, 2, 3. All right, that tool is touching that shoulder in there, and the reason I preloaded is that's where I want to take my first cut, and then I want to move it 287 thousandths, so I can go 1, 2, 50, 60, 70, 80, 5, 6, 7, and then whenever I come back across there to make finish out the cuts, and just bring it back in there to our 0. So I think we got everything ready to go. Let's go ahead and fire this sucker up and start making a cut. I'm going to go ahead and shoot a little bit of oil up in here. Spinning it kind of slow. I think we got it around 75 RPM. All right, tool's touching there. Kind of had it preset here on the cross slide. Having to adjust the steady rest, getting a little bit of chatter there. About halfway through it now. That's 100 thousandths. Let me shoot a little more oil in there. Actually, I'll move the camera and see if I can get you a shot over here of it cutting too. All right, let's go ahead and finish this first cut out. Don't like that big full radius in there. Okay, there's our 182. I'm going to go ahead and offset it 287 thousandths that way. 1, 2. All right, I'm going to come back in there and make another cut. I just moved it in 100 thousandths. I'll bring it back and to our 182 depth here on the dial, and I'll do that a couple times, and then I'll make a pass through there to kind of clean it all up at one time. Just getting a good look in there to see how everything is looking. It feels right. Okay. Alright, this is going to be our cleanup cut. I'm all the way back against the shoulder. I'm bringing it back to my depth that I need. And then I'm just going to feed it across. That's 100. $200, 250, 60, 70, 80, 5, 6, 7. Okay. All right, our undercut is done. It's difficult for me to show something that far inside a bore on camera or a picture or whatever, so I tried to get the camera there where you can kind of see it. It looks really nice. It looks like the radius blended really well against the shoulder. So next thing I want to do, I'm going to just put the boring bar back in there with a chamfering tool. With this tool bit right here. And I'll just break this edge and come in there and just break that edge there for the thread start. Here's one way to make sure that your boring bars are nice and level where your tool bit goes in. I'm going to use the speedy lathe gauge to make sure that my tip of my tool is on center. And you can see that I'm high. Usually on my boring tools, I like to keep them just above center. Alright, that's looking good. So, square thread. And this is how I was taught. Whenever you're cutting a square thread, I put the compound on 90 degrees or parallel with the axis of the machine here. So that's what I'm getting ready to do. I'm going to swing it around, and of course I'll have to line up my tool holder. That's not going to be in line there once we move it like this. So let me get this thing squared up, and I'll tell you why we do it this way. I always have a hard time seeing this with all my backlighting there. It's on either side there, so I got to use this one. These old machines, they were very accurate whenever they stamped the lines on here for the angle. Alright, so I've got that lined up on 90 degrees. We're not going to be using the built-in thread stop. I'm going to be setting a 0 in that position like that, and we're going to be using the cross slide for our end feed. We're going to be bringing it straight in. So the reason why you set it on 90 degrees, and then once you have your, your tool's going to be around here like that. See, like I said, we got to square that up too. Whenever you're making your cuts in there, once you get that thread cut to where it really needs to be, where you think you should be, you can use the compound here to move your tool a couple of thousandths either way that you want to. If you want to scrape in the sides a little bit and widen out that thread, that's why you set this on 90 degrees, so you can move your tool over just a little bit. We may not have to do that, so we're just going to start making our cuts, and we'll see what we run into. So I'm going to get this squared up, and I think we'll be ready to go. Just trying to get an average from end to end there. Alright, I think that'll work. I like my cross slide handle to be over here on the left side. Use my left hand to throw it. So in order to get it where I want, I've got the tool bit loose. I don't have it clamped. I got it sticking out a little bit, so I'm going to bring this over. Alright, now it's touching the tool and it's just kind of pushing it back in there. And I want to bring this around to say about right there. That's about where I like it. And I'm going to set my collar to 0. I've also got a yellow line there for the paint marker to kind of help visually see where that 0 is. It makes it a little bit easier. So come in and set that to 0. The tool bit should be really close right there, so I'll just go ahead and snug it up. Now that may not be perfect, so once I come in here and touch off, I may have to tweak this dial just a few thousandths. And I've also got the compound here set to 0. I've got my backlash eliminated. I'd actually be going that way, but I got a 0. Also yellow dots to help see where it's at. I'm getting my 0 stop position set. So I came all the way in here and I basically touched the back of the shoulder there. That's the tool touching there. And I backed it off 1/8 of an inch. Alright, so over here I've got my dial set to a 0, and it gives me about 1/8 of an inch of clearance before it goes all the way back. And whenever you're cutting, I should hear it relieve out of the inner board into the thread relief. Here's a better shot up here at the hand of the controls. Cross slide on 0. I've got this set on 0. It just kind of gives me 2 points there. We got our 0 set there with clearance to the shoulder, and we got the machine set up. So if you'll recall, we're going to be cutting a 3 pitch, 3 threads per inch. So there's the 3. So A, C, this is an A, this one's up here in C, and of course it's in line with this tumbler gear here. We got it set up in for our lead screw. Now I'll probably slow that down. That's actually spinning pretty fast, even for 75 RPM. You can see the dial gauge there. I'll probably slow it down a little bit, take my time. And you notice the 3, I've got a little yellow dot there. So with this being sort of a funky thread, it's an odd thread, I'm going to use the 3 as my reference point every time I engage it. So I just put a little yellow dot there to help remind me of that. I'll engage it on 3 every time, and I know I can't go wrong. So let's go ahead and let's get started. All right, let's get this tool touched off. I'm gonna come in here and got it very close. I've also got a dial indicator over here on my cross slide. All right, we're just skimming it there, so I'm going to reset it. I'm setting my collar and my dial indicator here. So I got 2 points of reference for where the tool's at. All right, guys, here we go. Let's give it a shot. I'm gonna feed it in just a couple thou here and see if we can make us a little scratch pass. Okay, I hit my 0 over here on the dial. Back out and bring it back. What I'm doing is just kind of checking it here. I'm measuring it with the scale for the 3 threads, and I'm just kind of judging it by sight here, getting it lined up on that 5 line, and it looks like we're right. And we got to be right. I've double checked the tumbler gear over here. It's on 3. So I'm going to go with it, guys. Let's take a 20 thousandths cut. Get some cut mold going in here. Now the thing you got to do, you got to keep up with your depth. So I just took 20. I'm going to take another 20, so we're at 40 thousandths. So I'm on that dial. I'm at 460. I just got to try to remember that every time. Bring it back to the 460. I'm going to stop and just take a look at everything here. It's making some nice looking chips. Everything's looking good. Another 20 thousandths on the dial here. there's a lot of tool pressure and things going on with a setup like this. You got your boring bar, steady rest. So I'm making a couple spring passes here to help everything kind of catch up with itself. Yeah, it's no in feed, and you see how much it's cutting. Well, that was my second spring pass, so I'm going to come on back, and so that's 100,000 step, 50 on the dial right here. I'm going to take another cut. Don't worry about that oil. Use plenty of it. Coming back and doing spring passes every time I make a depth cut. It's really removing quite a bit of metal out of there each time. So by the math, I've still got approximately 12 thousandths on the depth that I need to take. And you can see this is where the thread starts right here. And you can see the little step here. So I'm not quite to the depth yet. I'm getting real close though. But I just tried the adapter here just to see what was going on, and it won't start. So I already know that I still got more to take, you know. I should have it threaded to the diameter that it needs to for the, you know, for the threads to clear here. The tool is just starting to touch this counter bore right here, which I bored that. I can't remember what I made, about 5 thousandths over, maybe a few thou more than that. All right, so it's trying to go. It's trying to go in there. So this is where because this tool was so close to the width of this thread here, this is where we're going to use the compound, and we're going to scrape in one side of the thread. After I honed that tool bit, I measured it again. It was only about 3/1000 wider, so we're going to come back in here, go into the same depth that I've been running. But on the compound here, I'm going to go ahead and tailstock's right in my way. I'll feed it in a few thousandths, and we're going to make another cut. I'm going to do that again. That was 3. I'm going to make it 5/1000ths on this compound. I'm going to make another pass. I'm just cutting that one side of that thread a little bit wider. Very close. It's trying to go in there, but it's still rubbing. Still rubbing there. So just got to keep working it, guys. I'm gonna go a little bit wider. We're gonna widen the thread out just a little bit more. I'll probably bump the end feed in a couple more thousandths. Still getting some resistance there. Alright, whenever I had unscrewed that, I noticed there was quite a few chips packed up right here on the edge. So I still had a bunch of chips inside there, so I turned it on and blew it out really good. Let's try it again. If I get it straight, it should start. Look at that, man. There it is. It's home. That is a very good fit. There's no rock or wiggle. It's wiggling a little bit. You probably just can't see it. I can feel it. I'm probably going to make another couple spring passes where my tool is set, just to give it a little bit more clearance than it is, because you know this is something that is going to get dirty and rusty and cruddy, and it doesn't need to be a super precision fit going on there, but we don't want it loose either. Now I like it. So that's after taking a couple more just spring passes through there, just trying to shave a little bit extra material out of there. I believe I moved the compound about 2/1000ths to the side there to kind of scrape out the side just a little bit more. And I'm happy with the way the fit is. Once you get it started straight, it'll go right in there. There we got just a little bit of wiggle there. I believe they put an O-ring right here, and whenever they screw it in there, it'll seal up. So what I'm going to do now is that start right there is pretty sharp. It's kind of got a broken edge. I'm going to go in there with my grinder and just grind out that first little part, And after I grind it out with a little carbide burr, I'm going to go in there with this little flap disc and try to blend it in and soften it up some so that there's no sharp edge there to catch. So here's the little 1/4 inch rod trick with the emery paper wrapped around it. Good for polishing bores. I just want to polish that out a little bit. Get rid of any high spots on the edge of the thread there. All right, I think that does it. It feels nice in there. Really, the only thing I got left to do in the lathe now is just to put my little bell center back on there, and I'll have to give this OD another little final polish. Let's look at that. Oh yeah, that looks fine. You can't even feel it. You can just see the discoloration there from it rubbing. So that'll buff right out of there. It'll look good. Well, all of our lathe work is finally done, minus a little bit of polishing I got to do right here that I just mentioned, but other than that, all the lathe work is done. So I'm happy with the way the square threads come out, and I hope that you enjoyed following along and maybe even picked up a tip or two here or there, grinding a tool bit and how to set up for a square thread and how to turn and get a good finish on something. You know, I enjoy doing this kind of stuff. That I like doing this kind of work and sharing it with you on my channel. I really do enjoy it, and I enjoy making things like this on a lathe. It's always been a fun job for me. So next phase for this is going to be, we've got a pretty big keyway down here, and that's the part that actually goes through the gearbox itself that drives it. And then down here there's two keys that are 180 degrees apart that we got a mill in it. And other than the keys, I got to drill and tap it through here for a grease fitting. So all that'll come later. So I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for following along, and I'll talk to you guys later.